Welcome back to Magnificent Feed, the channel where powerful voices, bold leadership, and global moments meet insight and storytelling. If you're passionate about world affairs, leadership confrontations, and moving speeches that shift hearts and minds, you're in the right place. Today, we witness an extraordinary encounter between two figures who rarely cross paths: Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader Ibrahim Traoré and U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett. In a moment that defied expectations, Crockett's emotional speech left Traoré visibly speechless. What happened? Why did her words pierce so deeply? And what does this mean for global politics and shared humanity? Stay with us as we take you inside this incredible moment. It all began during an international summit hosted by an independent Pan-African and global human rights forum. Leaders, reformers, and revolutionaries from across the globe gathered not in the typical halls of the United Nations or the polished corridors of Western capitals, but in Dakar, Senegal, a symbolic place of memory and history for the African diaspora. The setting was intentionally raw. No red carpets, no ivory towers, just open tents, a symbolic reminder that leadership belongs to the people, not palaces. And seated near the center, in his military fatigues and trademark calm gaze, was Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the 36-year-old interim president of Burkina Faso. Known for his fierce Pan-Africanist stance, his rejection of colonial control, and his rise as a voice of resistance against Western hegemony, Traoré came prepared to speak truth and hear nothing but truth. But few could have predicted what would unfold when Jasmine Crockett, U.S. Congresswoman from Texas, rose to speak. Known for her sharp legal mind, unapologetic tone, and fearless stand for justice, Jasmine Crockett was not originally scheduled to speak that day, but a series of canceled appearances and rearranged panels gave her a 15-minute window, and she took it. She began with a voice steady and firm. "Brothers and sisters of Africa," she said, "and to all those gathered here today, I stand not just as a black woman from America, not just as a representative of my district, but as a daughter of a dream deferred, a legacy denied, and a people still rising." Traoré's eyes lifted. There was a momentary flicker in his gaze. This was not political fluff. This was personal. Jasmine continued, her voice gaining depth. "My ancestors were stolen from these very shores. We were chained, shipped, branded, and yet we built nations. We bled into the soil of prosperity while being denied the fruits. But still, we rose. Still, we speak." Silence fell over the crowd. Her words, carried by raw conviction, resonated like thunder through the soft desert wind. Traoré, ever stoic, leaned slightly forward. She didn't pause for applause. She wasn't seeking it. "I am not here to lecture Africa," she said. "I am here to listen, to connect, to reflect on the strange irony that those of us in the diaspora often look here for strength, while you, our siblings, look out into the world, sometimes wondering if we forgot you. We haven't." The room felt smaller, the air denser, the moment more intimate. Jasmine began to share her personal story, not one of fame or privilege, but of struggle. Growing up in a system rigged with quiet rules and invisible ceilings, navigating schools where history was erased, fighting in courtrooms where justice was often blind to color, yet never colorblind. And then she paused. "You see," she said, her voice cracking for the first time, "when I heard Ibrahim Traoré speak about reclaiming African dignity, I wept. Not because I disagree, but because I know exactly what it means to be told your story doesn't matter, that your truth is too uncomfortable, that your power must be contained, that your courage must be silenced." Traoré blinked. A rare shift of emotion crept across his face. Jasmine walked toward the center of the stage. No teleprompter, no script, just truth. "Ibrahim," she said, now speaking directly to him, "I do not stand against you. I stand with you. I may wear the badge of a nation that has often brought pain to this continent, but I am not that pain. I am part of a new generation, a generation that knows the past but refuses to be trapped by it, a generation that wants healing, not dominance, dialogue, not doctrine." Traoré, known for his commanding speeches and sharp responses, remained silent, not because he lacked words, but because the power of hers demanded space. She spoke of the mothers in Mississippi who cried just like the mothers in Mali, of the children in Detroit who hungered just like the children in Ouagadougou, of the dreams born in Harlem that echo the same hopes whispered in Dakar. "We are not divided by oceans," she said. "We are connected by blood, by memory, by hope." At this point, the audience had shifted from applause to awe. Phones were lowered, heads bowed. Even security guards near the edge stopped scanning and started listening. And then came the moment. "Captain Traoré," she said softly, "your struggle is not isolated. Your revolution is not yours alone. When you rise, so do we. When you speak, we hear echoes. When you fight for freedom, we remember what it costs and why we must never stop." Silence. A kind of sacred stillness fell across the gathering. And, for the first time in the summit, Traoré stood, not to speak, but simply to stand, in respect, in acknowledgement, in shared shared pain, and an unspoken unity. There were no chants, no cheers, just the sound of two stories, separated by continents, connected by history, meeting in one moment of truth. Later, when asked in a private interview what had struck him most about Crockett's speech, Traoré replied only, "It is rare to see a heart speak so clearly." And that, perhaps, was the real headline. Not that a U.S. Congresswoman spoke at an African summit, not even that she left a revolutionary leader speechless, but that in a world wired with division, someone chose truth over talking points, pain over politics, and connection over confrontation. The next day, social media exploded with clips from the speech. Hashtags like #Crockett in Africa and Diaspora United began trending. Commentators from Johannesburg to Jacksonville weighed in. Some criticized her for humanizing Traoré, a man often viewed with skepticism by the West. Others applauded her for bridging what too often remains an emotional and cultural chasm. But beyond the noise, something else happened. Young people across Africa began sharing their own stories. From Soweto to Cotonou, they posted videos saying, "I too am not alone. My voice matters. We are connected." And in the U.S., African-American youth, many who had never even heard of Traoré, began learning about Burkina Faso, the Sahel, and the post-colonial struggles that still define African geopolitics today. Crockett's speech did more than move a man. It moved a movement. In the days that followed, a new initiative was announced, a youth-led summit between African and African-American communities set to be held annually, rotating between continents. Its goal? To create a space where history isn't forgotten, where pain isn't polished, and where the future is forged, not by institutions, but by individuals. At the heart of that summit, Crockett's words and Traoré's silence, two sides of the same powerful coin. Months later, when Crockett returned to the U.S., she carried not just applause, but a renewed mission. In her next speech on the House floor, she referenced that day in Dakar. "There are times," she said, "when a voice from across the world reminds you who you are and what you're here to do. That day, I didn't go to Africa to teach. I went to remember." And in Ouagadougou, Traoré continued his leadership with renewed energy. His speeches shifted subtly, less defiant, more unifying. And when asked what influenced the change, he simply said, "A sister came and reminded me that resistance without love is just noise." This, my friends, is the power of words, not just the ones shouted, but the ones spoken softly, with truth, with pain, and with purpose. On Magnificent Feed, we don't just bring you headlines, we bring you humanity. Stories that remind us that even in a world torn by geopolitics, divided by borders and wounded by history, there is still space for healing, for dialogue, and for moments like this when a speech becomes a bridge. Before we close, remember this. You never know who's listening. You never know when your words will ripple into the hearts of people you'll never meet. So speak truth, speak love, and never underestimate the power of showing up with your whole heart. Thank you for watching Magnificent Feed. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you see things differently, share it. Let this moment ripple further. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that matter. Because the world isn't just changed by politicians or presidents. It's changed by people who choose to feel, to speak, and to stand. Until next time, stay magnificent.